Larry Downs, is it time to get rid of the FCC?
Well, I'm not sure if I would go quite that far. I mean, the FCC does do some important work in terms of managing the spectrum and managing the Universal Service Fund. But as far as regulating the internet is concerned, I hope they stay as far away from it as possible.
What do you make of their performance last week of this current compromise on the table?
It's very difficult to say much of anything, Andrew, because they haven't actually released the text of the proposal. That's coming, in another week or two. All we saw was kind of a brief overview, an outline of what was going to come. It looked like it was a compromise version similar to what Representative Henry Waxman had been trying to get through Congress just before election recess. But it's very hard to say much because we haven't seen it yet.
But if it's a compromise that Waxman came up with, and we've been dancing around this compromise now for 2 or 3 years, why have we waited so long for it?
Well, I think, there are obviously parties on both sides, well financed as well, who had very different agendas. And some wanted nothing, some wanted something much stronger. And, under the Bush administration, nothing was going to happen. President Obama obviously had included net neutrality, whatever it meant or whatever he thought it meant, as a campaign promise. And so it was clear his FCC was going to try to do something. But I think they learned here, as they did elsewhere, that the political process is much more complicated than they thought.
Silicon Valley seems to be strongly in favor of the current moderate solution, the compromise. Why do you think Silicon Valley is in favor of moving ahead now?
Well, I think two reasons. One is that, again, whatever the details that come out are, one thing the chairman of the FCC made clear was that reclassifying broadband under Title II and making it more like a telephone service is off the table for now. I think that put a lot of people in Silicon Valley at ease. I think that was the thing that was most worrying us for the last 6 months. The other reason, obviously, is that we'd like to get this passed. There are really important issues that the FCC has to get to work on, including freeing up more spectrum, resurrecting the National Broadband Plan, fixing the Universal Service Fund so that it actually does something that people needed to do. And while this net neutrality thing was completely captivating the FCC, none of those important things were getting worked on, or at least not getting the attention that they needed. And so I think from that standpoint, Silicon Valley has a lot to be gained from just getting this out of the way and letting the FCC get to work on what's really important.
What do you make of the fact that the unholy alliance now opposed to this moderate compromise is made up of leftists like Free Press and radical conservatives like the Tea Party people?
Yes, well, that's right. I mean, again, everyone's hedging a little bit until they see the details. The carriers seem to be supportive or at least sympathetic to the chairman's dilemma. But they haven't explicitly said they support the proposal because, again, we haven't seen the proposal. But obviously the people on the far left and the people on the far right never wanted anything to get passed in the first place. Their real gain only comes when we keep fighting about it, because that's how they pursue their more aggressive agendas, both deregulatory and pro-regulatory, and also, frankly, how they continue to fundraise.
Has Genachowski got enough runway to get this plane up, or is he going to crash?
Well, he certainly has the 3 votes in the commission to pass his proposal. I think there was some question about Commissioner Copps, but I suspect that's really just saber rattling. So he can get the proposal passed. Now, of course, that only does is shifts the focus of attention from the FCC building to the U.S. Court of Appeals building, where the inevitable litigation will start and probably consume us for the next 3 years. That'll keep the legal department busy at the FCC, but at least as far as the commissioners are concerned, they can move on to other things.
So what you're saying then is that this thing is now going to get stuck in court for the next 3 years?
Oh, I think that's almost a certainty. If nobody else, Verizon has already made clear that they're not happy really with any FCC proposal for net neutrality, regardless of how moderate it is. So they are likely to bring litigation, or of course some of the left groups, Free Press and Public Knowledge, who are very unhappy with the moderation, they may bring litigation as well. And, because in the spring said that the FCC's authority over net neutrality was dubious at best, there's probably a pretty strong case to be made that whatever they pass on December 21st is outside the law and won't be upheld by the courts. They probably know that as well, by the way. But it's a 2 to 3 year process to get that finally sorted out.
Is there a third way? Is there some way of avoiding all this legal confusion, chaos, waste, cost?
Not in America, Andrew, not that I'm aware of.
So it's bad news.
Well, it could be worse news. I think that's the way to look at it. It's bad news in the sense of they're going to pass something that, frankly, I don't think is necessary, could interfere with investment, could be harmful, and could have some unintended consequences. The good news is that it's not as bad as it could have been. And it may be that it never goes into effect. We may spend all our time just litigating it. It is very expensive and wasteful, but frankly, that's just how Washington and regulation works.